All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Security Health Plan Academy, our monthly webinar series designed to provide you with valuable information relevant to your health, wellness, and healthcare plan. In today's session, we will be focusing on the important topic of healthy eating as we age, which is especially pertinent as we approach the holiday season. We are honored to have Karla Arrigoni, a diabetes education and clinical dietitian from Marshfield Clinic Health System, joining us today. With 25 years of experience in nutrition counseling and diabetes education, Karla is here to share her expertise and provide valuable insights into implementing dietary strategies, including the incorporation of foods and supplements to optimize your health as you age. Karla has a passion for assisting clients in practical ways to achieve their health goals, and I had the privilege of getting a sneak peek at her presentation earlier this week. Trust me when I say that our viewers are in for a treat. Without further delay, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Karla Arrigoni. Karla, the floor is yours. Feel free to get started.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate that introduction. And just full disclosure, of course, we all are getting older, so that being healthy as we age is important, but I am actually soon to be a grandmother, so wanting to be healthy for that time, and a lot of you can probably relate to that, is like an extra treat, something to look forward to. So our objectives today are really just to focus on a few nutrients that are important for us as we get older. We're going to talk a little just about a few vitamins and minerals that tend to maybe fall to the wayside maybe a little bit as we get older, and then just a little blip on finding healthy and reliable nutrition information, especially on the web. We're sort of bombarded with information, and so kind of where to find the right stuff. So some of those nutrients that I mentioned, especially as we get older: protein, fluids, fiber, and then vitamins and minerals. And I just want to remind everyone that we are talking about just general healthy adults, older adults. Oftentimes we have health concerns that may require different recommendations from what I'm sharing today. So we're just doing the general stuff today. And so we'll start with protein. And it's frustrating to me, this first graphic, that starting after age 50, we start to lose muscle every year by about 2%. Some suggestions are up to 5% a year. And we're breaking that muscle down all day throughout our day. And so getting that protein spread throughout our day is an important way to combat that. And it's important for maintaining independence to maintain that muscle. And also, it's that getting enough protein is not just important for our muscle health, but also our bone health. And so because of this recommendation to maintain our muscle mass, too, just an aside, those if you have a goal to change your weight, rapid weight loss is not recommended as we get older, just because then we actually promote more muscle loss. So important to think about that as we get older. So if we take a look at how much protein we need, that's always a question. And it can be based on how much we weigh. It's different for all of us based on that. So I have 0.45 to 0.55 grams per pound of body weight. Right in the middle there is about 0.5 grams per pound of body weight. So if we have a 180-pound person, then about 79 to 99 grams of protein a day is what would be recommended. We don't necessarily want to do that all at one time. So again, because we're breaking down the muscle throughout the day, then spreading that protein out throughout the day can help us combat that. And so getting 25 to 35 grams roughly at least 2 meals a day can be beneficial. Then we can fill in with snacks and things too. Where do we find protein? Most of us think of like steak and chicken, right, for protein. Fish, eggs, great source of protein. So all of those animal sources are usually the top of the list that people think about. Our dairy foods are great sources of protein. So we have, right, lots of milks, dairy milk. There are some alternative milks now that are popular, almond milk, coconut milk. They are much lower in protein. So the soy milk does have about the same amount of protein as dairy milk, but the other alternatives are much lower. Doesn't necessarily mean we can't use them. We just aren't going to use them to pump up our protein intake. I like to point out too that there are some plants that have protein, especially nuts and nut butters. And again, that soy are good sources of protein. And then a couple of grains like quinoa that have some extra protein in them too. So a variety of ways that we can get that protein. There's a little bit in our vegetables have just a little bit, like white bread, crackers, those kinds of things have just a little bit as well that contribute some. Those aren't really good quality proteins. And so the foods that I have listed here are really the best quality proteins to choose from. If a person is struggling with getting enough protein, sometimes our people will share that their taste for those kinds of foods kind of diminishes over time. And so instead of just wanting a big piece of meat on their plate, incorporating into other foods may be a better way to do that. So if you're making a soup, we can just bump up the amount that we add of meats or beans, another plant-based source, kidney beans, pinto beans, great nutrition and great protein as well. Adding it to salads, sometimes just a little bit here and there. So a little bit of a few nuts or a little bit of peanut butter can bump that up. If you're an oatmeal lover, if you haven't tried peanut butter in your oatmeal, it is tasty. So give that a try. Some of the dairy foods like yogurt, especially Greek yogurt, is higher in protein. A lot of times people will say, well, is Greek yogurt better for me? And I always say it depends on the goal. If you're getting plenty of protein, then, the other one, the regular still contributes some, but if you're struggling to get more protein, then the Greek yogurt might be a better choice for you. Cottage cheese, a great place to get yogurt. And I'm not a TikTok follower, but the word on the street is that cottage cheese is super popular on TikTok and people will blend it up and use it instead of sour cream in lots of different ways, dips and things. So if you like sour cream, potentially using cottage cheese instead would be a way to boost up that protein. Tofu, it's pretty foreign to us in this part of the country, but it's really versatile as well. In a smoothie is a common way that people may use it. Sometimes adding powdered milk or again, that cottage cheese to different foods can bump up the protein. I want to just mention the supplements like Ensure, Boost, those other protein drinks that are out there. They are really designed for people with a poor appetite or people that are really struggling to get enough protein. So if you're a person out there with a great appetite, no problems, getting the protein that you need in the day, there really is not a need to use those. The advertising is so slick, it almost makes us feel like it's better than eating food. My motto is we can't make food better than food. So again, for someone with a really good appetite, it ends up being just sort of a high calorie multivitamin. Moving on to fluids. Again, as we get older, sometimes that taste for protein decreases, sometimes our thirst decreases. So it's a less reliable way to tell if you need hydration. If we lose that muscle mass, again, we have less water in our bodies. And sometimes certain medications can increase our risk of dehydration. So there's estimation that maybe 40% of older adults are underhydrated. And sometimes that can leave us feeling sort of confused. We may have a headache. We may be dizzy, poor balance. So it really is important to stay well hydrated. Other benefits of that hydration, you can change slides, would be to being hydrated helps us maintain our body temperature. Keeps our joints cushioned. So maybe it can help a little bit with joint pain. Important to keep our organs functioning. And this is the dry skin season. And staying better hydrated actually can help us manage that to a certain extent. And oftentimes we think of that hydration as helping us get rid of wastes. So if our urine is dark and smelly, we're probably not that well hydrated, and that can be a cue that we need to increase our hydration a bit, or if we're constipated, again, that might be a cue that we need to increase our hydration. Again, how much do we need? Our bodies are 60% water, so we need a good amount. We always hear the 8 cups of water a day. I guess that could be a general rule, but really, if I want it more specific to me, aiming for about 1/3 to 1/2 of your body weight in ounces. So a 150-pound person would have 50 to 75 ounces of fluid a day. And don't worry about that all being water. There are other places that we can get hydration from. And so water is a great beverage. Coffee and tea, you might be surprised to see that on the list. In moderation and usual consumption for a person, the amount of coffee or tea that they drink doesn't necessarily make them dehydrated, but can contribute some hydration. If a person normally has 2 cups of coffee a day and then goes out and maybe has 6 or 8 because they're with friends, we may be a bit more dehydrated on that day. But again, with that kind of usual consumption, it can actually help us to stay hydrated. Juices, of course, are fluids. Milk can help us stay hydrated. Jello, popsicle, broth, soup. So those foods that have a lot of liquid also help with our hydration. Now, the protein drinks, if a person is using them, they're about 80% fluid, so they promote that as well. And then fruits and vegetables help us stay hydrated. So lots of ways we can get that hydration besides just water. But how do we get it with us? Increase that, if we're struggling a bit, keeping it close by. Water bottles, lots of different colors and shapes and things that keep your water cold for days if that's important to you. So again, kind of like the protein, it's good to get that hydration throughout the day. Best for our kidneys to be well hydrated all day long. If we're not a fan of water, but we think that that's a good choice, we want to increase it, just adding a little either like a strawberry or a lemon or orange or a cucumber or even just a splash of fruit juice to our water to change that flavor can be a nice way to enjoy the water. Keeping a drink with your meals, and then remembering there are other things besides just that water that help us stay hydrated. So we're kind of moving so that we saw that the protein, that having less muscle mass promotes potentially dehydration. So we're trying to combat that. And then when we think about hydration, we think about regularity. And so fiber can kind of come along with that. So fiber is, I think just in general in the United States, doesn't matter what our age is, we struggle with getting enough fiber. And so for adults over 50, 30 grams for men, 21 grams for women is what's recommended for the day. And so the connection between hydration and fiber is if we increase our fiber without enough hydration, we're going to end up struggling. If constipation is our issue, we're going to make that worse. So as we're working to increase fiber, we need to increase the fluids as well. So why is fiber important? And most of us think about that regularity and, people, I always say people come to the emergency room because of constipation. It can be really, really uncomfortable. So definitely something that we want to work to maintain. It can prevent hemorrhoids and diverticulosis. There are certain fibers that can help us with our cholesterol and blood sugars. And studies show that if we choose higher fiber foods, we can feel more satisfied as we eat. We usually think of fiber in like whole grains, right? Breads and cereals and pasta. But those beans and lentils that are giving us good protein are also giving us really great fiber. Fruits and vegetables, of course, have fiber. Nuts and seeds, good way, again, with some protein attached. And then for those really that aren't able to get enough, the fiber supplements can be an option. And there's a whole whole variety of those that can give us some support with getting enough fiber. So I just have a slide here quick with some amounts of fiber in different foods. And you can see that the dried beans, peas, lentils, it's chili season, it's bean soup season. They have lots and lots of fiber. So great way to get it. Certain foods like the Fiber One cereal, that is just jam packed. It has some psyllium added, I think, to really up that fiber in there, but we can see that squash and berries, those little seeds in there, up the fiber, the skin on my potato, you know, pears and raspberries are probably the highest fruits, but really there's an advantage to getting a variety. So lots of places that we can get that fiber. So how do we add it? Looking for some foods that have more whole grain in them. I think we have to be a little bit careful about what's on the front of the label. Foods, they list a certain amount of whole grain, but if we look at the nutrition facts label, the fiber really, isn't as high as we think it should be, just because they put the word whole grain on there. That's a good selling technique. So really checking that label and finding the foods that are going to give you more grains that are going to give you more fiber. And again, soup, casserole season, throw some beans into those. Lentils cook a lot like rice. So if you're making any rice dish, they can just be cooked together in there. Breakfast time is a great way to get some whole grain if you're a cereal lover. And then just adding those fruits and vegetables, which give us fiber, but a lot of important vitamins and minerals as well. Popcorn, if you're a snacker, can be a great way to get a little bit more fiber in your day. So I mentioned fiber supplements, and again, they can kind of help us get a little bit more fiber if we need it. Getting it from fruits and vegetables and kidney beans and whole grains is going to give us a nutritional benefit because there's vitamins and minerals included in that. But sometimes we just need a little extra. A caution with fiber supplements. When we get started with them, they can cause some extra gas and bloating, just like an increase in any fiber. So making sure that you start really gradually. We often say no more than about 5 grams a day, and then maintain that for a couple of days before you increase again. And again, certainly increase that fluid along with it. And more fiber isn't always better. Just like we'll talk about the vitamins and minerals coming up, more isn't always better. There's a recommended amount, but sometimes if we up that fiber so much, we might lose our appetite. It can kind of be so filling. Or again, it could be too much that's going to actually make us more constipated. So finding that balance is important. As we get older, there are certain vitamins and minerals that tend to be more important, and sometimes we end up falling short on. So we're just going to hit on a few that potentially it may be beneficial to consider a supplement if you're not able to get enough from what you're eating. And just a little aside too, anytime you're thinking of starting a supplement, it's not a bad idea to mention that to your doctor or pharmacist and make sure there aren't any contradictions with other medications or conditions that you have. So vitamin D, most Americans don't get enough vitamin D. And especially November through March, I would say you can go outside today in your swimming trunks and you are not going to get enough vitamin D because the sun is just too low on the horizon in this part of the country. So the other part of that is as we get older, our skin isn't able to absorb as much vitamin D. And so it's important that we get vitamin D. We look at it for helping us with bone health. It helps us put that calcium in our bones. It's important for blood pressure, hormone production, our immune system. Some studies kind of indicate that when vitamin D is low, like from the sun, our flu and illness numbers increase. So it's important that we look at that and see how we might get that in our day. So recommendations for 51 to 70 are listed there, about 600 international units a day. And when we get up to 70, though, that increases a bit. And then you notice there's actually an upper limit that's recommended that we stay below that just for safety. So where do we get it? Dairy products are fortified with vitamin D, so that's the most common place that we get it. We're not always super big fish eaters here, but salmon and fish liver oil and liver, they are some sources of it. Cereals are fortified with it as well. But again, oftentimes we're not able to get a bunch from the sun and we're not getting a lot from our food. So looking into a supplement or asking your doctor about a supplement can be beneficial. And sometimes they'll even check that level to see, how you're looking with that. So vitamin D is a friend of calcium. We said that vitamin D helps put calcium into our bones. And we do think of calcium as important to keep our bones healthy, but also for muscle and nerve functions and blood clotting and hormone production. So it has a variety of uses in our body, and sometimes especially if you've never been a milk drinker, or if your taste for that is decreased, we're probably going to be getting less of it in our diet. So again, we can see the recommendations there. Generally, men need a little less until age 70. Then it's about the same as women at 1,200 milligrams a day. It can, yeah. And where do we find it? I got a big picture of the dairy section there. That's usually what we think of when it comes to calcium, the dairy foods. But also almonds have some of our green vegetables have some, and if you're a salmon lover, the canned with the bones actually is a great, or sardines with bones, both good sources of calcium. So a couple other places that we can get that. Again, oftentimes a supplement may be needed. Different sources. Calcium carbonate is less expensive. It needs to be taken with food. And, one mention about that, if you're a person that has suffered from kidney stones, a calcium supplement may not be recommended for you. So again, something important to discuss with your doctor. Calcium citrate is the other most common form. It's a little bit more expensive, but can really be taken anytime. Generally, it's a little bit better tolerated. And either one of those supplements, if you're using them, they usually come in a 500 to 600 milligram dose. Often they have vitamin D already in them to help you absorb it better, but those doses need to be separated. So usually 2 are recommended in a day. So if I take 500 with my breakfast, I'm going to want to wait a couple hours before I take the second one. In addition to separating calcium supplements from themselves, any supplement that you have that contains iron, whether it's just an iron supplement or a multivitamin with iron, that would need to be separated from the calcium as well. So when I combine calcium and iron, they compete for absorption. When I combine calcium with calcium, my body can only absorb so much. So I'm not really going to get the full benefit of taking them both at the same time. B12, the absorption of B12 generally decreases with age. It's attached to a big protein molecule, and our stomach acid tends to decrease a little as we age, and so we have trouble pulling it off that molecule so that we can use it. And certain medications like metformin or acid reducers can decrease our absorption of B12. And so, if you're feeling fatigued, constipated, confused, so those can be some symptoms of a B12, low B12. 20% of older adults can be affected by low B12. Our need doesn't necessarily increase as we get older. As you can see, it's the same on age 14 and up. But again, that absorption decreases, and so it can make it a little bit trickier to get to for your body to use. So some food sources, again, that contain B12. So getting them in there, but then also I would actually, just an aside, the fortified cereal, that's already like a manufactured form, so your body's probably going to absorb that better than with the meats that it has to break off that big protein molecule. But you're going to want some of each because that tuna, salmon, beef, chicken is going to give you some protein as well. Then sometimes people think about a multivitamin, and we might think of it as sort of just a insurance policy. Gives us a lot of vitamins and minerals. We don't necessarily need to take anything with high concentrations. Just a general multivitamin, especially if you have a lot of restrictions or your appetite is poor, that it can just be kind of fill in some of those gaps. Looking for one with a USP symbol is important to make sure you're getting a good quality one. And then again, any health conditions, just make sure you check with your doctor. When we're looking at the variety of multivitamins that out there, we want one appropriate for our age. So, right, generally we're not going to take a prenatal vitamin if we're over 50. So just we do have some sort of general ones that are for different age groups. So that's a good rule to follow when we're looking at that. And when it comes to supplements, vitamins and minerals, all of those things. There's just a lot of really slick advertising out there. And so if there are statements like, cures whatever ails you, or your doctor doesn't want you to know about this, or we're the only people that have this, it's probably, or buy now, there's pressure to buy. It might not be the best choice. And, doing a little more research on that might be beneficial. There are a few websites I listed for vitamins and mineral supplements that are good to check out if you're interested or thinking about, looking into vitamin mineral supplements or even herbal supplements that can be beneficial. The Consumer Lab one does require a membership, but in general, you see I have two .gov websites listed, so those are usually good sources. Otherwise, like one with a .org is generally a good reliable source as well. So that can just maybe get you through those looking at those. Actually, these next two slides, I was just gonna, will just be out there, but for the interest of time, I think we were just gonna skip those. And yeah, so looking at, the big picture and really the variety of foods, slipping in protein, fluids, calcium, fiber throughout your day can maybe help it feel a little less overwhelming. So we'll open up to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karla. All good tips for even those of us, I guess, younger people to be implementing as well. I do have a couple of questions that were submitted in advance of today's webinar that I would like to ask. The first one was, how often do diabetes and hepatitis B connect?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we wouldn't expect there to be a connection unless there was like a sharing of blood glucose meters or the finger stick devices or needles. So otherwise, we wouldn't expect a risk of hepatitis B for a person who has diabetes.
Okay, a second question that we had received was, how do I calculate my protein needs as I age?
Okay, yeah, and we had that in the slide, kind of about
Yes.
0.5 gram per pound of body weight.
And the last question that was received was, I think this person is hoping for a future discussion on diabetes, but the question submitted or the comment was, what should we look out for with diabetes, or what could happen in the future? What should we look for?
So yeah, so we know that diabetes is one thing. The control of your diabetes can depend on your health, I guess, with that condition. So if the blood sugars are well controlled, then we generally see fewer complications. But sometimes even with pretty reasonable control, if a person's had diabetes for a long time, or if they're really struggling with that control, those high blood sugars affect the health of our blood vessels. And so then we may have more risk of stroke, heart disease, neuropathy, so pain and tingling in feet, retinopathy, so affecting the blood vessels of our eyes. So diabetes, we think of it as just blood sugars, but it really affects the health of our blood vessels. And so maintaining those good blood sugars helps keep that system running better and can reduce our risk of those complications.
Right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions in our chat feature, so we can go ahead and close out for today. Thank you again, Karla, for joining us. It was a wonderful presentation, very helpful, lots of good nuggets in here, especially leading into the holiday season. So yeah, I think with that, we can go ahead and close. Be well, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.